Thank you, everybody, for joining us. And you as well. It doesn't look like Anne is gonna be here.
She will be, but she's just running late.
Oh, okay, no worries.
But she did say to go ahead and get started. We don't have a vice chair of this committee, do we?
No, we do not.
You want to run it?
Sure.
Go for it.
Do we have any comments from the public that we would like to hear that before we start the regular meeting?
From items not on the agenda.
From items not on the agenda?
Just the part.
Yeah, no, that's not, I mean, yeah, that's on the agenda. but-
Okay.
Yeah, you're on the agenda. Okay, so come on here and, say your name, first and last, where you live, your street address would be helpful. No, we can hear you.
So my name is Patrick Hennigan. I live up at Chumstick. That's the major points. So-
Yes, you did
yeah.
perfect, thank you.
So, yeah, I'm here. First of all, the parking lot's beautiful. One thing I have noticed is that there's a lot less people parking in it than there used to be. Most.
Are you talking about the glacier
The
one?
new one, yeah. But one thing I've also noticed is that parking around town is getting tighter. Having worked at Upper Valley Mines and the East Side, a number of people from the non-local public will come in asking for places where they can park for free. Which we know is not the goal necessarily, but it is pinching the parking such that like come this summer. I anticipate weekends at being kind of tight to even get parking at dams to get groceries. Something I observed last year, but I've been observing parking being even tighter this year than in the past. I think one thing that's really important to keep in mind when we're considering parking is a lot of people who work in this community can't necessarily afford to live in city limits within walking distance in order to support our businesses. So in order to keep our businesses healthy and rather than having the people who are commuting in from Dryden, Dryden, Shaston, Chumstick, Blewett, whatever, from finding roles, say in Cashmere, which we know is growing and has a lot of free parking and good businesses coming in. I think like for the health of businesses downtown, and this convenience of people who live here, having an option to have parking that's not $20 a day. For if you're running in to get groceries or work a job, I think it's like incredibly important. Just want to put that out there for the record.
Thank
So,
you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak before we start?
This is on the agenda.
It's
So
at
do
the
we speak-
bottom.
Do we speak up then or?
No, you can speak now.
No, no. The
Oh,
way we do it, yeah, if you have any comments about items that are not on the agenda, then we'll hear you now.
mhm.
Otherwise,
Otherwise, it's
if you
at-
have,
on
if you have,
item
if you
number
have
4.
comments when we get to item 4, which is proposals for local parking options, then you can speak. At this point, Anne, the
Okay.
chair is on, so we're handing the reins over to the chair, Ann Hesberg.
Hello, sorry for my tardiness. I had a work meeting that ran a little long. Apologies. I think I just missed a couple of comments. Am I up to speed?
You missed one comment about.
Okay. Perfect. We're starting at the top of our agenda. Fantastic. All right. So has the committee had a chance to review our meeting notes from May? And any amendments, comments on the agenda? Notes? All right, seeing none, those are approved, and we'll move on to April and May parking revenue information. Take it away, Shannon.
We did not have a meeting sorry, let me get to the right page. We did not have a meeting last month, so what I did was I tallied up both months to give you an idea, basically what we were looking at. And so for our pay to park revenue, if I can get that a little bit better, there we go. We had 173 for April, which was a very good April, even though it's a shoulder season. In May, for pay to park revenue, we had 245,000 that came into pay to park revenue, and this is just people that come in and park in the parking lots and pay for their parking. This is This is the parking revenue. The next item we have is our permits and overnight reservations broken down by lot. We brought in April about $5,000 and we lowered that in May when one of the people wanted to drop some of their stalls, which is very typical. Our enforcement report, we had 991 tickets written in April. We had almost 1,200 written in May, and then we brought in 23 and then $28,000 for those 2 months, and that is paid parking tickets. Here's our infraction revenue from year to year. And you can see we had a really big spike last year and we haven't had this year, which means our compliance is coming up, which is why we see our revenue coming up more, because with the programs we've put into place and the education that we have, we're seeing the compliance is better. Here is all of our parking revenue, everything that we gather as the parking department. That's paid tickets, that's paid parking, that's all of the overnight revenue, anything that we have. So for May, it was 173,000. That was our end balance for April, and we hit 280 in May. And May is where our busy season starts up. So I'm sure everybody's noticed that the parking lots on the weekends are full and people want to go rafting, and that's reflected here. And that is our April and May report. Is there any questions on that?
Yeah, Shannon, I have one here just real quick. Just as a point of reference, remind me when the Glacier lot came online.
The Glacier came online December.
Yeah.
December, once we got the light poles in and everything like that.
Great.
Anything else? Perfect.
Great updates. Thank you, Shannon. Any
Yeah.
other questions from the committee? All right, moving on, report from the interview panel and our chosen firm for our parking garage consultant.
Yes, I'll take that.
You certainly can, Selby, go for it. You gave us a great report at the city council meeting a couple nights ago.
So the selection committee, which was composed of Shannon, myself, Courtney Porter, who's our executive assistant, Brantley Bain, our city engineer, Ann Hesberg, Jesse Boyd, and Jean Dawson from the committee. We interviewed 4 consulting teams last Monday and Tuesday evenings. And the unanimous selection, the unanimous choice was the firm that received top scores from each of the 7 panel members was ARC Architects. They're out of Seattle, and this is the firm that is finishing up the Front Street restroom project right now. And they are supported by PCS Structural Engineers and a fantastic transportation outfit, and the name of which escapes me at the moment, forgive me, but they were impressive, and we'll be contracting with them for phase 1 very soon. Phase 1 is site selection for choosing a city-owned site within 1,000 feet of the gazebo to construct a parking garage. That's all I have, Ann.
All right, fantastic. Moving right along. On to agenda item number 4, for which I think we have a crowd today. Our committee discussion regarding proposals for local parking options. We can start with the committee on some ideas and examples of local permitting options, and we can bring some things to the floor for discussion. Does anybody on the committee want to start? Go ahead, Jesse.
I'd be happy to. I actually had a little bit of a conversation today, actually, with the enforcement team down in Hood River. I don't know if the team here has talked to Hood River before. Have you guys?
I
They're
have just
super great.
Parker and randomly running into them being down
Oh
there.
yeah. I remember talking to one of their officers there, and also had an opportunity to chat with their manager for the department. And I just called out of the whim just because I was curious. I was doing some research trying to find other folks that have been, inputted parking programs in the past. And when we're referring to specifically of the discounted parking for locals or some sort of parking solution that involves the downtown core area specifically, right? We have residential parking permits that are available right now for residents, but we don't have core parking type solutions. And I mean, the short answer is they didn't have one. It was a challenging subject. I got a bit of information that I already kind of knew the answer to because it's stuff that we struggle with here. I think a lot of it comes down to the administrative compliance and the administration of like the enforcement that goes into it with locals. How do you limit vehicles within a household? How do you track that efficiently? And knowing where that line is drawn, they haven't gotten into it yet, and no intent to for the time being.
And
I
they've
was
had
really
paid
trying to.
parking in place a lot longer than we have, and
They have.
they're a really great example for a local recreation community that's just a little bit larger than we are right now.
Yeah. And I thought at some point I had seen some sort of local parking program for the downtown area. I know that they do employee permits for employees to utilize, similar to what we have. So they've instilled some of the same tactics. They don't use Flowbird per se. So I know that that was one of the things we were looking for is how do we work with Pay to Park or Flowbird for an operation like this. And Shannon, I had a few questions for you eventually. Don't want to take all the time here, but understanding some of the fundamental pieces where that Flowbird and or Pay to Park have to allow us to track this sort of thing as its own individual area, or does it just get treated like any other parker with some sort of special notes? So, but that can come later. But that was my quick review of a discussion I had with Hood River today.
So what I'm hearing, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jesse, your suggestion is no program because it's
At this point in time, I do not believe that that would be the wisest decision to make. And while that's not a popular choice, probably amongst many of the folks here, it's a very challenging program to put together. I think it's challenging to enforce. I'm not saying that it's impossible. I just think that we need to look very critically. And I'm hoping that this is going to be a multi-meeting type subject here where we're not trying to make a decision today. That wasn't clear to me, but I do think that there are options out there that we need to look into. I do think that there is a possibility of doing it, but I don't know what that looks like with our current infrastructure without the additional stalls right now. I know that's a challenge. Obviously, the goal here being parking structure down the road, but
Right.
that's not a solution today. That's a solution 3, 4 years, 5 years, however
Right.
long we are down the road. So I'm happy to contribute more as the meeting goes, but that was my starting point.
All right.
I also very much agree with Jesse, and I think it's really important that if there is some sort of a program that is rolled out, that it's well thought out and executed well, because if we run the risk of if it's too hasty and it doesn't work well, then that being creating a whole host of other problems as well. So.
Yeah, today is for discussion of various options that the committee may be bringing forward for us to discuss. It certainly is not an action item for us today, because I agree that this does need to be thoughtful, and I think that was the intention of putting this on the agenda. Jean, any thoughts?
I do have some thoughts, and of course, I go back to St. Augustine because I'm familiar with their parking program. And what they offer is for locals, and they include the entire St. Johns County, which is amazing. And when I looked at our map of the city limits versus expanding it, I think doing it just city limits is way too small. I feel like more people would use it if it was bigger. I feel it should not be free. It should just be discounted, because that's what it is in St. Augustine. They have a big parking garage, and their normal fee is $20 all day. Locals get it for $3 all day. Their metered parking is $2.50 an hour, and locals get it for 50 cents an hour. For me, when I first signed up, they didn't approve it right away, and I had to go downtown like 3 times, and I had to pay that $20, and I hesitated every time I wanted to do it. But then as soon as I got it, I went there all the time without even thinking about it. It was a no-brainer. For $3, I can be there all day. I'd never stayed all day, but I think we need a no-brainer price. I think we need to have larger than the city limits, because that's very tight. And those are people who can almost walk as it is. We need to be able to get the people outside the city limits who want to come, because I know people who won't come to town anymore because of the parking. And I think opening it to, I don't know if it's just the school district or the 98826, not everybody's going to use it all the time. I mean, like I said, down there, entire St. Johns County, they open it up to. That's my thoughts. And they also allow more than 1 plate per household. I'd be open to letting like maybe 2, so people didn't have to worry about which car could come downtown or that sort of thing. And it's all done by license plate. You just have to register ahead. And like when I would drive into the parking lot, they just knew right away, and they just said $3.
Yeah, because they're doing plate scanning.
Yep.
Similar to how we do it here locally.
Yeah.
Okay, so a discounted parking program of some sort is your recommendation, Jean?
For wider than just the city limits.
Okay. And that's an interesting point of discussion in and of itself, that we could definitely have a conversation about. I don't know, does the committee want to talk about that a little bit, or do we want to see some options out on the table from members first, and then we can dive into what has been suggested?
Travis did bring his, he
Hello.
also.
He's on.
Hey, Travis.
Can I chime in? Can
Yeah.
you hear me?
Yep.
I didn't know if you guys can hear me. I'm kind of in the middle of nowhere. Thanks. This is an important one for me. Locals parking, and as opposed to shutting it down, I think that with Kayla, kind of not moving forward. The point of this is to have a discussion about this, and so I want to make sure that we're continuing to discuss this, and doing it right is important. First of all, the longer we hesitate doing this versus other cities around the country that have installed parking meters and implemented a resident parking at the same time, it goes over a lot better with a city. Each year we go by without doing this, we're doing a disservice to our community. So yeah, I did email this morning because I wasn't sure if I was going to get through. I believe my program is, and speaking with my good friend at T3 Parking Systems, which is a global national parking management service, getting his feedback the past couple of days. I believe we should do a program to get things going with the city, with people that live in the tax district. These are the people that live in our city. We can expand to the school district as we get the first phase rolled out. At the end of the day, how many dollars are we going to lose by giving away parking? If they use it every day, that's great. They're going downtown to buy something or to do something in downtown area, right? So they're spending dollars downtown. So we're not, the parking system may lose a little bit of revenue, but it's really a drop in the bucket for doing this for the community. The idea is either 2 different things we could do is pick a lot and just do a lot. This is a free lot for residents that streamlines it. You get this lot. Now, that's not ideal. People are not going to be pleased about that because some of them could just walk into town as opposed to parking in the lot and then walking into downtown and getting their dog food or getting a pizza. And then, so the other idea, right, is we'll have to have people enter their license plate, so they have to know that when they go downtown to get this, I believe it should be 2 hours free. Put their license plate in, and that's the time starts. That's the timestamp. They need to enter their license plate at the kiosk, which Flowbird and what's the other one? Flowbird and the other system we use can both do that, I believe. And so the parkers they can park closer at the meters. I think we should do that. There's 2 options, the lot or the parking meters, and put your license plate in. The question is, will Flowbird and the other system, will they be able to communicate? So then people will find out, oh, wait, I can park 2 hours here and park 2 hours over in the other one. So I get 4 hours a day. Then it gets on Facebook and everybody knows that they can game the system. So I need to make sure our systems can communicate, right? And that was one of the questions that Shannon had asked. But at the end of the day, we need to do something sooner than later for everyone. And I believe that just for the simplicity of it, it starts with the city residents. 2 hours, we're not going to lose anything. I don't think we're going to be bottlenecked with parking meters being tied up for people using it, and we can monitor it and with the systems we have. So that's my 2 cents.
Jesse?
Can I just ask a clarification, Travis? So are you suggesting then that we would do a 2-hour time limit or a 3-hour time limit? One, no matter how many stalls you park in, it's just a 2 or 3 hour time limit for the city residents a day for free? Is that your suggestion?
Because once they put it in the system, their license plate, they lock it in, that time stamps right there. They've got 2 hours and it starts then. And so they can move around all they want. They're timed in. Shannon, from what I believe, Shannon, that's the idea.
Does our system have that capacity, Shannon?
Yeah, we can do that with our systems.
Yeah.
I have a suggestion. So along with what Jean was saying, I just think it needs to be no brainer, like super simple, easy for people to understand. And so I kind of just went based off of your points of consideration. So first, I do think it should be free, but I personally think that it should be Tuesdays through Thursdays. And that's because one, they're the days that are less busy. So it's encouraging locals to come downtown and spend money and visit our businesses, since we don't have as many tourists during those times. I also think it should be free only on the street parking, since there's already an automatic 3-hour time limit there. Just keeps it really straightforward. Obviously, this wouldn't be in place, at least not obviously, I guess, but I don't think it should be in place during Village of Lights. And just keeping with simplicity, if we do Tuesday through Thursday, we don't really have to think about it for Mayfest. We don't really have to think about it for Oktoberfest, because we're Friday through Monday, we're not implementing it anyway. I wasn't sure how the submitting of license plates worked, but I assume that would be some sort of like online form or something. One thing was one place per household kind of didn't make sense to me, because I think a lot of the people that live in town, especially if they're like younger or the people actually working in town, have roommates. So I don't know if there's like a higher limit to that, but just something I had noted. And then I also agreed with Jean that I think it needs to be more than just like the city limits. I think it should be the Cascade School District, because that's what a lot of businesses already do as far as their like local discounts and stuff. So again, just simplicity, it's easy for people to remember. And then I also personally thought like including people who work in the downtown area, and that like if they can prove that they work for a business downtown, it'd be nice to give them that option. I don't think they're going to be like using it all the time, but it would be nice to be like, hey, you work in our downtown area, like please come and enjoy it every once in a while. So there's that, just really simple and straightforward. And I think it, like Travis was saying, it would give people something now.
So Erica, are you suggesting, I just want to make sure I heard your recommendations clearly. Are you suggesting Tuesday through Thursday, free parking all day for people that qualify?
Free parking on the street parking only, because that automatically gives them a 3-hour limit, at least in their spot. I don't, like everyone that we talk to is like, I want to be able to go to a restaurant. I want to be able to go downtown and like pick up something from one of the local businesses. I don't anticipate that a lot of people are going to be like moving around spots and like doing this for the whole day. But I think, yeah, saying street parking only automatically is like 3-hour limit anyway.
So Tuesday through Thursday, 3-hour max free parking. That's your recommendation.
Yep.
Okay.
After the lights.
Summer has the same traffic as Village of Lights.
Well, I don't think we could, I don't know if we could say no.
True.
that would be, at least for what I was suggesting, that's not as much of a benefit.
All right. Who's next on the committee with a suggestion? Momi, ideas?
I'm listening. I can walk. I don't count.
You do count. You're on the committee, absolutely, and you can think broadly about our community on this topic, even though you are 2 blocks from downtown.
Then I would say I really like Erica's suggestion, which keeps it simple because free 3 hours, so you can actually go down, hang out, and Tuesday, Thursday, weekends are a zoo, and I don't even mind spreading it out to the school district, although a lot of them come to my house and park and walk into town.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Gonna get that residential zone established there, Momi.
I'm working on it.
Get your parking permit. All right. Anything else from the committee on ideas or any additional ideas that the committee would like to share?
I gotta bring it up. I know it's an unpopular topic, but I feel like we've had these conversations in the past that revolve. There's one thing for visiting the downtown core for the afternoon, evening, morning, whenever you go down to go down and do your business and to explore town. It's another thing for the employee parking aspect. And that is one thing that I think we do have to address here, which was one of our top priorities and one of the top recommendations from our consultant when Rick Williams first came to us. He says, hey, you got to get your employee parking under control. That was the first thing he said. So I don't think that we can discount that too much. So regardless of the path or the discussion that we go, I think we have to keep in mind that the time limits are going to be important to be able to enforce if this is a path that we go where that 3 hour limit, whether it's half price or some sort of discounted rate based off of whatever it is, that it cannot be an all day type option or a shifting stalls type option that goes into play here, because that would defeat some of the purpose of what we've set out to do, and which was get the right parker in the right stall and in the right place.
Yep, absolutely. I do agree with that, regardless of which path we end up going. And that aligns a lot with the first 15 minutes free that we have established currently. As long as you have your plate in the system, you get your first 15 minutes free, and you just register that at the kiosk and you get your first 15 minutes for free. And I would envision any sort of path forward that we decide to implement, if we do decide to do something, that it would be similar to what we are already implementing with regard to those first 15 minutes free for our locals.
I have a question for Shannon. When we streamlined our pricing in the last year, did that affect revenue at all negatively, do you think?
No. No, I don't think so.
Okay, good.
So I wanted to make sure that the committee had a chance to talk before I brought, some general thoughts to this. For me, I think simplicity is key. I don't want this to be incredibly burdensome on our staff. It already takes a lot of staff time to implement and enforce our parking program that is, many years in the making and is becoming efficient for us, which is great. And it's providing us a future opportunity to be able to fund and develop a parking garage, which we have needed in our community for a very long time. So one of the huge benefits of this parking program is not only optimizing our parking for our businesses downtown, where Jesse, you had mentioned earlier, before we started managing our parking in any sort of way, our previous parking study from years ago had told us that our major parking problem was the fact that employees were parking downtown and we didn't have any parking stalls for locals or tourists to park. And so implementing our parking program has really helped us rotate through those stalls and create more options for people, whether you're local or whether you're a visitor into Leavenworth. And so that's been one of the really big bonuses there. Also creating revenue so that we can actually afford to implement things like an expensive parking garage in the future. So I think keeping all of that in mind, I really want to make sure that anything that we as a committee choose to implement in the future with regard to a local's benefit of any kind is thoughtful, is efficient, and is very similar to what we are already implementing so that we're not overburdening our staff with regard to adapting to new programming as well as creating a lot more work with regard to how they're enforcing it. Because our enforcement has actually, as our parkers have been learning over the last couple of years, our enforcement has been diminishing, and that's great because that means that they're knowing and understanding how our system is working, and we are giving out fewer tickets. We are not getting a lot of revenue anymore from those parking tickets because people understand our system, and I think one of the big benefits of that was when we transitioned over to the kiosks, which are very user-friendly. So keeping all of that in mind, some of the ideas that I had were similar to kind of what Erica had brought forward with regard to focusing on the days where we don't have as much tourism coming into town, where businesses have less business Tuesday through Thursday. And we may be able to potentially adjust this. Like in the summer, we're very busy every day for the most part. In the shoulder seasons, we're not as busy on Tuesdays through Thursdays. Sometimes, all week long, we're not as busy in our diminishing shoulder seasons that keep getting a little bit smaller. So maybe it's something flexible, but I think that, starting with, expanding our first 15 minutes free to your first hour is free if you're in our system as a local, potentially could be a good jump off point. And we can pick the parameters on when that applies, like Erica had said, maybe a Tuesday through Thursday. And if that's really successful and it's not highly impactful on our staff, we can talk about expanding that. But I think that if we implement something that is too big to start with, it's really hard to rein it in. But it's a lot easier for us to expand, if that makes sense. Thoughts?
I have a
Travis?
question. Yeah. Hey, like Erica and you guys are saying simplicity, but then you say, but no weekends and no festival lights and no Mayfair. Like that's not simplicity. Simplicity is here's the program, put your license plate in and you get an hour or 2 hours for free. I'm curious, when you talk about not having locals use it over the weekend, what do we think, what's the number of locals that we think are going to come in and use this during a day or a night? And how many stalls do we have? I mean, I feel like we're not going to get inundated and all of a sudden every stall is taken up by locals. What is the reality of this, Shannon? I mean, is it, 10 people rotating in at a time? I mean, this isn't
I
a
don't think
burden.
that's asking. I mean, what, can you fine tune it for me? I didn't understand the
So,
question.
yeah. So if we don't want locals to use this during the weekend because those are our busy times, how many people do we think that are locals that are going to use this, that are going to drive in and use their 2-hour allotment at any given time throughout a day or throughout a weekend, throughout a Saturday, a 12-hour Saturday? Is it 10 or is it 20 or is it 100 locals will tie up 100 spots for 2 hours? Or
No,
what it
answer that question because each day is its own. I mean, and that's why we see things change on our parking revenue and stuff. And when we notice that the revenue, our shoulder season is diminishing. So I can't really answer how many people are local
Right.
would be taking up that. I can tell you that the Rick Williams study that said there was no parking downtown because the majority of it was used by people that were working in the shop.
Yep.
80% of the time. And at that time, it was very difficult for anyone to park downtown.
Yeah, so I saw that 83%. So workers aside, so we're talking about workers and we're talking about people that live in Leavenworth and the community using this. So if somebody works a shift, and they get 2 hours for free, and then they take their break, and then they go maybe move their car. You know, I'm not sure the reality of that, really. I'm just trying to figure that out. I don't think that the employees are going to use a free hour and then go move their car to a different paid area or not buy a permit.
I think we probably have to have separate discussions of locals and employee parking. And then just to answer your question on why I personally recommended Tuesday through Thursday was for simplicity, because there's Village of Lights where we can all agree that like time when we would lose a lot of revenue all week long. But if we just say Tuesday through Thursday, rest of the year, that keeps it super simple. And you, like I said, you don't have to think about it during Oktoberfest, to think about it during Mayfest, because we're not giving the free parking. So it's less information we have to give locals about, like, okay, you can do it all these times except Oktoberfest, except Mayfest, except like all these various weekends we do things on. So that's personally why I recommended Tuesday, Thursday, in addition to like those being the less busy times in town and when like there's not a lot of tourist activity for businesses during shoulder seasons and stuff.
Makes sense. Okay. Thank you.
Jesse?
Sounds like somebody has a great microwave going in the background. I love it. Hopefully it's popcorn. I've been playing I've been playing a brain game over here that I'm just trying to wrap my head around. I'm curious how others think about it. If we had additional inventory in the system, i.e. a parking garage, would I feel differently about this conversation? How would I, if we were sitting down with this question today, knowing that we had an additional 250 to 300 stalls available, would I frame my position? Would I frame myself differently? And I think I'm coming up with the answer is yes. I would frame this differently, and I would think about this differently if we had additional inventory. I think knowing that we are strapped on inventory during peak seasons, I think that there is a very serious shoulder season lull where there's plenty of inventory. We can all walk downtown and go skate skiing downtown through the streets because there's not a parking stall that's being used. But to Jean's point that she makes often too, is that with the downtown closure of Front Street, there's even less parking inventory that's available today. So, I'm just curious how others feel. I don't know that I have a pointed question here other than, if we had additional inventory available, would this conversation be easier to grapple with? And I think the answer for me is yes.
Well, we can't, like Travis said, I don't think we can keep kicking this can down the road. And that's like what some people are saying, like, oh, let's discuss this when there's more inventory or whatever. I think we need to do something. Like you guys said, it's something you've been talking about for years now. So I don't know. It just seems like we should, even if it's very basic, like we should.
Well, we haven't been kicking the can down the road. As older parking committee members, I mean, Jean's been on here for as long as the parking committee has existed. I've been on here for quite some time as well. And we haven't been kicking the can down the road. With previous discussions, the committee has determined that it just was not in the city's best interest at the time. And so as questions continue to come up, then we have a discussion again.
I'm not saying that you have been again. I'm saying that from here on out, we decided that we were going to make a decision, whether it was give people something or tell them, no, this is not something that we're going to do right now, so that we make a decision one way or the other. We're not being wishy-washy. So I'm just saying from here on out, I don't think we should keep kicking the can down the road. Not that you guys have been doing that, but I just know that it's been a discussion and we decided again as a committee that this was something that we were going to decide on one way or the other.
Travis?
I think Jesse and Erica, I'm glad there's some members there from the community. We haven't really seen that. And I'm a big advocate of having people come to these meetings. I'm no longer in any of the Facebook pages of Leavenworth, so I don't see what's going on. But I'm glad to see some people there. And I think what's showing with this discussion is it is complicated, right? It's complex, but also shows that we we do care. This parking advisory committee and the city and city council care about figuring out some program for the community. I mean, that's the reality, but it is complex. And to Jesse's point, yeah, dude, of course, man. If we had inventory, it's a totally different mindset. And I'm appreciative of that last study that Rick Williams did with 83% of workers tying up spaces. You know, I get it. It's complex. And in a vacuum, I think I have the perfect solution, but it's not a vacuum. And it's just complex. And I'm glad we're continuing to discuss this, and I'm glad we're spending a good amount of time on it today. So thank you all.
Any other discussion points from the committee? All right. Do we want to bring in our public with comments? I would ask that people are concise and efficient with their comments, because I think we have a fair number in attendance today. So if people can keep their comments to a couple of minutes, that would be wonderful, so that we can allow everybody to be heard that would like to be heard. So can we start with the folks that are present at the council chambers first, please?
Does anybody want to speak on this matter? If you do, go ahead and state your name and your address.
Hey, my name's April Welch. I'm the one that put the first initial notification of this happening on Facebook. I left Facebook 2 years ago, so Travis, not to call you out or anything, but to say you're not on any of the Facebook pages as a committee member is something that is so important to the local community. I highly recommend you reconsider that. The reason that I became so passionate about this a week and a half ago was because I attended the local farmers market. I can share this picture with anybody who would like to see it, but there was a sandwich sign out there that said lot reserved for. And it was the Lions Club breakfast and farmers market patrons only. It was the swimming pool parking lot. I went, I parked in the center, and yes, there were signs that said it was permitted parking. But any place else that you go and you park publicly, and there is a sandwich board for the event. I mean, miscommunication, common sense, I'm not quite sure. But the argument became that because there was businesses who bought parking spots, and I parked in the middle, that my parking ticket was valid. After 20 plus years in this community, every single time I come into town, I get a ticket. It is now considered the thank you gift of supporting local in our house. Jean made the best point of all. I'm right there with all of the people who have stopped coming to town and supporting local, because I have to pay for parking. I get a parking ticket. At no point as a local am I appreciated. And yet my tax dollars are what support the community.
Your tax dollars?
Yes, our tax dollars support this community.
The community.
Some of the comments that were made, I absolutely agree that the employee parking is a different conversation from locals parking. It's been a problem forever. I empathize with them. They're here working. Most of them have been priced out. They can't afford to live here. So if anybody should be getting free parking, it should be the staff that is keeping this town going so that anybody can even have programs. Jean mentioned that St. Augustine, and if I'm incorrect, let me know, but that they do a discounted paid parking garage. I love this idea. My husband and I disagree. My husband feels like we pay through the nose for taxes, we shouldn't have to pay for parking to support the local businesses. I'm a little bit more empathetic that there has to be some give and pull. And I like the idea of maybe not $3 a day, maybe it's $2 a day, whatever. I mean, we are a smaller community, but 50 cents an hour versus, I don't even know what it is. I know we've got surge pricing because we brought family in to go at home because apartments are going to be so damn. Again, talk about just kicking the locals in the gut and saying, we don't care. We're here to get all the tourism dollars. Travis was asking a good question. I'm curious too. How many stalls are there that are these paid parking? So what's the total stalls of people paying for parking?
All the stalls that we have.
Yeah.
Is it two? I'm sorry, I can't remember the exact number off the top of my head. Let me look it up for you.
No, we have that information.
Yeah.
Please go on.
I'll just,
I'm just curious. I mean, I thought it was a great question. I know that it's going into some other complicated things, but I think it would be interesting to know. And then take that and divide that by the local community. You guys are talking a lot about like if it should be city limits, if it should be 98826. I like the idea of it being the school district. Because those are the people that are paying the majority of these taxes. I know for me, we're in an acre and a third, and we pay over $1,000 a month in property tax.
Where do you live?
I live off Pearl Street.
So you don't pay any taxes to the city, not a dime.
I didn't say I did.
Okay.
I said I pay over $1,000 in property tax that goes to my community. It doesn't matter if it goes to the city or the schools or the library. It goes to my community. And I can't come in and support a local business where I can even do a pre-order and spend 15 minutes trying to get whatever it is in that business picked up without a parking ticket. So I like the idea of discounted, which I also really like Erica's Tuesday through Thursday. Other than I think, and you guys are probably calling it something different, or as old people call it tree lighting. I agree. You know, when we have people that come in and visit us for tree lighting, we're like, yeah, peace out. I'll drop you off and I'll come back and pick you up. We have no interest in being in here. And again, back to what Jean was saying, the locals aren't coming in. We're being driven out by all of these practices, but also we're not here for the tourism. And we get it that 80% of what's going on in town is tourism. We're not here to do that. We are not going to inundate your parking spots at a discounted or free rate to come in and run our errands, or to bring family in, or to even come to a restaurant. My husband and I used to go to the Thursday night at Icicle Brewing every week until you guys put parking meters in. And then we stopped, because why pay parking to come get a beer for the evening and support local? There was a comment about the first 15 minutes being free with these parking meters. Is that, am I missing something?
in the original parking system that the city put in, we had, some subterranean sensors that were put in the ground. They were built to the city as being able to sense cars, for that 15 minutes. We very soon found out that they did not have really good sensitivity and people were not showing up, or, so it was a big problem. So the free 15, I stuck it back in with a code, with the Park Mobile has it, Flowbird has it, and you just basically text your plate information in it, and it will give you that free 15 minutes. And when you do that, that sends your license plate to my staff as a registered payment. So you have that 15 minutes in any paid parking stall. So we do ask that if you're using that 15-minute, we ask that you stay out of the loading zones. We ask that you stay out of our paid permit stalls. And anything else that is restricted, like a red curb or something like that, we would ask you not to do that. We'd ask you to go into a paid stall, register your plate, you're done.
And they don't have to just text, right? They can put it in the
You
kiosk.
can do
right?
it any
Yeah.
day, you can put it in the kiosk, you can text it, you can use Park Mobile, but it is very easy. And one of the things we're finding with it is that it takes longer than 15 minutes to do anything downtown. So one of the handy things about this is that it's sending alerts to our motorists that says, hey, you're almost out of time. Do you want to add some time or do you want to beat it to your car? Which is your option. You do not have to buy parking from the city of Leavenworth.
Are you all here for this issue, the locals parking? Did any of you know that this existed?
No.
It is on our website. It's been at our meetings. It's like, yeah, it's been out there for a long time since they did the 15-minute grace.
Okay, well, good to know now. Is residential?
If we could move on to our next commenter, we're kind of running pretty long with this one, so that everybody has a chance to comment, please.
Can I ask one more question?
Yes, please be brief.
There was a mention of a residential permit.
Yes. We have residential zones adopted into our code, and those that would be implemented into that zone would get parking permits.
That's also on the city of Leavenworth website under residential parking. If anybody wants a zone for their area, I would highly encourage you to do it. We've had this program since we started. I've had 3 people interested and 0 people do it. So, I mean, we would love to help you in the residence, not have all these people parking all over the place. But the way the council set, it gives the resident the option instead of having the city require it. So it asks our residents to buy in, to talk to their neighbors, to make sure that everybody is really cool with this. And then we get you in a program and we can zone your residential neighborhood. And if any of you are interested in this information, please feel free to send us an email. You can send one to TAPP, TAPP, @cityofleavenworth.com, or you can send one to me directly, and that's S Lemons, just like the fruit, at the City of Leavenworth. And I'm happy to help you. We would love to help you with this.
That tied to the location or to the driveway,
What?
the permit?
The permit is tied to
I
a
think there's a
location.
misunderstanding of what the residential zone is.
Yeah.
The residential zone, I think there's 7 zones outlaid within city limits where if a majority of property owners come together and request the city, they'll implement residential parking, which will impose a time limit for non-residents to park in that area.
And then
It's not a,
So the
like,
work
I lived in
permit
Boston, I had a resident
something
park.
to the other,
So it's not a residential, like, you can park wherever you want and pay parking for free program.
okay, that's, yeah, that's.
So it tows people who park for longer,
Tickets,
people who park for longer, but the residents don't
Would it-
receive a permit.
the residents would get a permit to park in that block, in that
Okay,
zone.
for-
If you live in that zone, so you live on Ash Street, next to Momi, and
Yeah.
and you have a residential permit program there, you will be given something to display in your vehicle if you're parked on the street. And you can stay there as long as you want, except overnights during the winter when we don't allow it. But what it would do is put a time limit on non-residents.
Yeah.
Anybody who doesn't have that sticker would have a time limit.
and we can also enforce it with license plates.
My name is Cindy Puckett. I've lived here my whole entire life. I have seen this town change from one way of living to what it is now. It is very, very overwhelming. One thing I have not heard from this is essential parking for handicapped people. I have not had the time to really walk around down here to find out where all the handicap stalls are, which in my opinion should be absolutely free. They should not have to pay a dime. My father was in a wheelchair and my brother had to park other ways away to get him to go down the street. And I think that just needs to be a lot easier for the handicapped people, all of them. They've hardly their time. I mean, my daughter has MS. She can't hardly walk down here, and even if she wanted to, she'd have to park very close and have a short time, your 15-minute limit. But I've worked in community since 75, and to be able to park, I understand your parking limitations for employees too. I deal with that at my work, but to give the employees a place to park because they work here hard, they generate funds for you. I live out Icicle Road, but I also pay for city water. So I am also paying into the city. And to be able to help out the locals who live here, who just want to go downtown and have dinner. To be honest, when my husband and I go downtown to park, we park in the hospital parking lot. My mother was on that board and I felt a lifetime of reasonable time to be able to park there. She was on that hospital board and she helped build that hospital. So I might be cheating the system, But I feel as though, because I am a lifelong person who has lived here and has watched the change, I think to allow the locals a little bit more of a freedom to even sometimes go on a weekend. We'll go down there on a Sunday afternoon sometimes, or Sunday, or even Saturday evening. It's just the spur of the moment kind of thing, where you want to go downtown and eat dinner. And it may not be that crowded on a Sunday afternoon, but you want to go down there. And granted, we have gotten tickets, but we come to you guys and you knock them out for us. And we really appreciate that. When we're only down there for half an hour or 1 hour to eat dinner, we don't want to pay. We don't want to pay. We've never had to pay just to come and visit our own community where we live, and we want to enjoy it too. Used to be where there was shops down there to where we could buy things for our home. We could get drugs. We could get the pharmacy left because of other issues. But it used to be a town where we could go in there and purchase our own things for our own town. Now we have to go to Wenatchee because all it is tourism down here. My father even said, this is not Leavenworth anymore. It's different than from 30, 40 years ago.
So I would like to address your ADA comment. ADA parkers with a valid license plate or placard can park in any stall for free for as long as they like. Unless they park in a parking lot that is not designated ADA, then they would be expected to park. We had our park consultant do an ADA assessment. We did add, after that study, we did add capacity for ADA on Front Street. And we had a committee meeting with the downtown steering. We'd had a walk on Monday, and we discussed adding some more ADA parking on 8th. So that is something that we are paying attention to.
Good, and I am 100%.
And two other points I want to make. The meters on street do not charge weekdays after 5 p.m. So going down to dinner, I've never had an issue finding a space.
Monday through Thursday.
Monday through Thursday. And City Hall parking lot is free 3-hour limit as well. So there is free parking to be found. There is free parking to be found. And I used to live across from the Osborne. That's a 3-minute walk to downtown. And there's plenty of free parking there as well.
I understand your points. I also am 100% in favor of the parking garage. I've been to some parking garages. Went down to one in Lake Tahoe. It did not even look like a parking garage. It had beautiful paintings on the side. One benefit that they had with this one was if you went, there's a theater in the same building. If you went to the theater and got your ticket, you did not have to pay for the parking because you were right in the same facility. But it looked nice, you know, and I've seen past years of really nice designs for a future parking garage here. This has been 10 years ago.
Oh, the flower tower.
Flower tower. And I think it represents the flowers that they hang in town, and it would just flow with the rest of our community. And I think you would benefit a huge financial support from that because of the turnover of people. I see it work constantly. We have to run people out of our parking lot because they take and walk to town, and we can't have that. It's not a public parking lot. It is our grocery store parking lot, and we want our people just like you guys want. You know, we need to have that turnover so they can come in, buy their groceries and leave. I had a camper pickup pull in when I got off work, and I went, I am really sorry, but you cannot park here. And they went for 1 hour, and I said, absolutely not. You're taking up 2 parking spots, and there's a parking spot right across the highway in the corner. You're welcome to go over there. So he said, okay, and then I walked away. I'm just giving you an example. I walked away, another car pulled up next to that was a friend of theirs, and they continued to get into that car to leave. And I had to go over and say, you have to move. You can't leave this here. So I'm going to deal with other businesses that are having to deal with tourism. I love the tourism. I know when the beginning of this started, it was a good push. It was something to help a dying revive itself and be busy, but it's overloaded. It's way overloaded, and and the advertising is way overloaded. We we love the funds that this community is bringing into our community. But at some point, you gotta slow down a little bit and really think about residents who live here and what we have to do.
Thank you.
Mhm.
I would like to encourage any additional commenters to please keep your comments concise. Our first two speakers were 6 and 8 minutes, and out of being thoughtful for those who took time out of their afternoon to be here, as well as our committee, I would like to encourage people to keep their comments a little bit more concise. If we could get in around 2 to 3 minutes so that we have an opportunity to hear everybody, that would be really wonderful. So next speaker, please.
Hi, my name is Lisa Foster. I'm born and raised in Michigan County. I moved back to this area and couldn't afford a house in city limits, and so I live 4 miles up the Chumstead. What I would really like to have is a bike path so that I could just bike into town, but we don't have that. I can't safely bike here. And so when I need to come get groceries or go get dinner or visit my friends, I have to park in town. And typically I end up parking in the residential zones most likely because I don't have to pay and I'm thankfully able-bodied and I can walk into town. But when I come with my mom, who used to live in the basement of the hospital here, she can't walk that far and we have to pay for parking. And I really feel like it's really reasonable for folks who live, you know, in the surrounding area to have a parking permit so that we can come and frequent businesses here. To me, people who live in city limits, if they're able-bodied, generally walk. And so really what we need is parking permits for people who live in the surrounding canyons and can't ride their bikes here.
Thank you.
Spring Street. I apologize, I couldn't come to the entire meeting, hear the comments, I was at another city-related meeting. But I just want to pose it in a framework of an opportunity versus negativity. I think with technology and applications and software and other things, there's got to be a way to creatively solve the problem. And so I just want to put a voice out there that, yeah, I do think that having a permit in the sense of like a pre-purchase type of thing should be possible and would also be beneficial in the sense that it would give a predictable revenue stream. It could be done in a couple of different ways, I think, to make it valuable to the city, because I understand that, you know, my hope would be it would be at a reduced rate, so there'd be some lost revenue there, but there could be, that lost revenue could be offset with some other beneficial aspects to it. Maybe it's also something that can be done in partnership with the Chamber of Commerce and other groups that want that local business to grow and thrive. So that's my only comment, is I encourage you to think of it as an opportunity to break the code that a lot of cities are probably struggling with. Leavenworth has broke the code on so many other things, so I'm sure it's up for this kind of challenge.
Thanks, Kurt.
Hi, I'm Jeremy Tremblay. I also live a few miles up the Chumstick. I've lived in a few different spots here in town as a tenant, and like West Linden and places where the residential parking has been impacted. After hearing what everybody on the committee said, I do agree with a lot of Jean and Erica's points, but I think that based on what I heard, you guys probably shouldn't do anything. I think that there's plenty of free parking around here. That's really easy to get to. If you live here, it's easy to find out. And everything else I heard was kind of just a little too, I just don't think it'll work. If you want to look at something that has a lot of precedent and has dealt with this problem, I would highly recommend to look at the city of Laguna Beach in California. Residents pay a like $150 to $300 annual fee for the parking permit, and it would be just for the residential areas. But it would be that all the residential areas would be closed, the tourist parking at all times, except for after like 11 p.m. or something like that. And if you have that parking permit that you paid like $300 for, you can park for free at any meter spot in the city. To combat the fact that they just did that in their downtown area, they implemented a trolley that drives through town every like 10 minutes. And they're beautiful, cute, open air trolleys. They would look so great in this town. But if you're looking for specific details, I'd highly recommend to model it after the city of Laguna Beach, because they experience very similar levels of traffic in the summer and during events, and then it's just dead otherwise. And it sucks to get a parking ticket. You're the only car parked in a paid spot. That sucks. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else that would like to speak? I think we got all our public comments. Are you sure?
Anybody online?
All right, anyone online, if you could raise your hand, we can bring you on as a panelist to make a comment.
Beth Fry, promoting you to panelist, please accept. If you unmute yourself, you can talk, Beth. Beth, you need to unmute yourself. All right, let's promote someone else. Kelly Craig. Kelly, if you unmute yourself, you should be able to speak.
All right, can you hear me? Okay, I put it under the question and answers. A few weeks ago, I visited Cle Elum, and I understand Cle Elum doesn't quite have the tourism that Leavenworth does, but it has a huge tourism population with Suncadia and all of the developments that go on in the surrounding areas. They have implemented a pay parking system, very similar to what we have had for years, and very clearly on every single sign, it says residents are exempt from paying. Now, they obviously have figured out a way to implement residents not having to pay for parking. And while I don't think that we have the need to have completely free parking for residents, I think that there are ways to implement something reasonable to keep us, when we have family that comes on the weekends, we choose not to go downtown generally because parking can be so difficult, whether it's my mother who is mobility challenged and it's difficult to find parking. But I just think that there's got to be more areas that the parking committee can explore, kind of like was mentioned with St. Augustine, where they have implemented something. I think our employees do need parking. Both of my children worked locally, and luckily they had an employer that provided parking. But I also worked for a large retailer, and that during the sales and things like that, we had to be bussed in. We could not park. Our cars would get towed as employees. And I really think that, yes, there is a need for employees in town to have parking. It doesn't need to be in the immediate corridor, but I really think it's so important for the committee to really take on looking at how serious it is that the local people want to support the local businesses, and the parking, the paid parking, is such a deterrent. The fees compared to Park City, I was in Park City at the heart of ski season, and I paid $1 an hour for parking on the main strip in downtown Park City. I go to support a massage therapist during the summertime for an hour and a half, and it costs me $7 or $8 to park. It's grossly, in my opinion, I think our parking fees are grossly enlarged and therefore affect us local people wanting to support local businesses, but local small businesses like massage therapists and things like that that are in the downtown corridor. So that's my input. I think Cle Elum has implemented a system very quickly. The business owners that I talked to there said it's great. They love it. So.
All right, Beth, are you available now?
No,
Okay, feel free to come off mute if you are able.
Okay, can you
There
hear
we
me
go.
now?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. I'm traveling. I'm in the car and I had a hard time with the mute thing. I've appreciated listening to everyone's comments. Just as someone who's lived for 25 years in the Upper Valley and never in town, always commuting, driving my kids to school, it is really important for locals. I have had several experiences where I just want to drop off the bike to get fixed and maybe go to the thrift store. And it's not a busy day. I think there was a comment that locals don't really want to be coming into town when we're competing with tourists for parking spaces. I don't see the problem of locals. I know the workers, I see that issue because workers will get to town very early to get a parking spot, but people wanting to come in and get some errands done are probably not going to try to do that on a weekend when they're competing with all the tourists, but wanting to find a parking spot when there really are plenty of parking spots available and to have to pay to run in to do your errands is frustrating. And I kind of echo the sentiment. I think that Cindy Puckett mentioned that, that there seems to be so much emphasis on revenue and tourism, and that it makes the word community feel a little empty, because what really makes our community are the people who are residents and live in this valley, whether they have families or not, but the participants.
Oh, shoot. I think she lost some service. If we could bring on another of our participants while Beth tries to rejoin us.
We have an iPhone.
All right. If we can bring on the iPhone, and then please introduce yourself. All right. Who's on the iPhone?
All right. Can you
iPhone,
hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, I'm Virginia. I have something just quick to add to this. I typed out. I've spent 20 years of my life living here. I'm 27. And growing up, seeing town drastically changing, parking is one of those things that is always getting worse and worse. And now locals feel even more pushed to the back burner without consideration of how it affects residents and employees. My biggest concern over the last few years is the increase in how much this has pushed even more parking than ever before into the neighborhood, and lack of parking for disabled folks as well, including my own parent who grew up here. Whether it's employees trying to get to work, locals just wanting to visit downtown, or tourists looking for free parking, there's parking in front of houses, blocking mailboxes and driveways, preventing those getting either dropped off or picked up, has increased congestion in the quieter parts of neighborhoods. All could be reduced if workers could park closer for free, and if someone wants to go visit the shops or restaurants in town to support local, they'd feel more inclined and welcome to do that with free parking as well. It takes a lot to keep a small town community tight-knit, and it has made it a lot harder to do so. Sorry, I kind of lost my place in what I had typed out. But empty parking spaces when there are slow seasons and weekday parking, locals could utilize this the most, and I think that would be the most impactful. And I think all of us feel the impacts of that living directly in town.
Alienated.
I tried to keep it quick and concise, and that's what I had to add to that.
So much.
KC, I'm promoting.
Okay.
You can unmute yourself, KC.
Hi, everybody. My name is Kim Hill. I live 9 miles up the Chumstick. I want to thank you all for the discussion here today. It is a very complex topic. I just want to share that I've been living here for 6 years and I've also struggled with the parking challenge. And I have a newborn right now. And I met a friend in town on Sunday afternoon who wanted to buy our newborn a gift at the local kid shop. And I paid $15 for parking just to meet her to buy a gift, which was the same cost as the gift itself. And I want to be able to do things like that, even on a Sunday. I want to be able to go take a yoga class that's an hour and 20 minutes without having to pay for parking, and support the locals who are, having businesses that thrive in our community. And as much as possible, it would be great to be able to have the free option for a limited time. And I think that time should be more than the 15 minutes. I wasn't even aware of the surge pricing. And so being able to, run errands and do the things we want to do in town for the 3 hours, I think whoever suggested that was a great idea, would be really useful. And then I also think there's something to be said for full-time residents versus those who have second homes here, and a way to differentiate between those two groups. I know Key West in Florida has a policy that differentiates between people if they spend a certain amount of time. So that could be something to look at as well. So yeah, thank you for listening.
Anyone else in attendance that wants to make a comment today? I don't see any other hands up online.
When I brought this up for my parking ticket, I was told that there was no local support. I think the locals just proved you wrong.
This is the first time we've had people in attendance in the meeting, so I actually applaud you guys for showing up. Because this has been something that has happened on Facebook quite a bit. And we always encourage our residents, and even if you're not a resident, if you're interested, if you live like on the Chumstick like I do, come to our meetings. These are public meetings, and the committee has very thoughtful conversations about this. But this is probably the first meeting that I've seen this many people at, but I've a lot of Facebook posts where they say they're going, and then nobody says anything, nobody goes.
In all fairness, Thursday at 4 o'clock, there was a lot of people. I made a list of all the comments of people that said, how did a time where people who work can come in? And I made the comment when I got here, how many of us are gonna end up with a parking ticket because we attended this meeting because we couldn't find our
So far away, just to avoid
Yeah,
that.
exactly. I mean,
Also, I'm only here because I got off work early.
yeah. So I'm here because I'm passionate and I'm tired of getting tickets. So I was told nobody cared. I showed you people care.
Yeah.
And I hope that you'll take Erica's suggestion of make a decision and from here forward, not take it down the road anymore.
All right.
We had one in the office. Come on, BJ.
TJ Robinson, 126 Commercial Street. I've lived here 8 years only. I have lifetime here. But I want to thank this park committee and what the city's done, because I know that over the last 30 years, they've talked about in this community about building a parking lot, having a parking garage. And it's only been since they did this committee and got things going and started charging for parking, we're able to pay for everything we've done so far, right? Selby, cash, right? We're not in debt for any of our parking.
No.
So far, so everything's cash. We're actually starting a parking garage, which is the first time it's happened because the people that are in here right now. I've heard in this meeting so far, I walked in a little late, sorry. We have free parking after 4:30, Monday through Thursday. So if that's what you're coming down to run those errands, which I hope we come down and support these businesses.
It's 5.
5 o'clock. 5 o'clock, and you come down to support the businesses, great, because that's when the businesses will want you in there. If you're able to come down earlier during the day, great, there's free parking, welcome. You can go to the park and ride. The shuttle runs from every 30 minutes in Leavenworth, will get you downtown. I completely agree with disability, and that should be, but disability is free parking. So if you are a disabled person, you have a placard, you go to a spot, you are not paying for parking. They make sure that they already, and I heard this committee talk about over the last couple of years, they make the adjustments, making sure they have the ADA compliant. they did the study, they put the money into it, which didn't put us into debt at all, because we had the fund money from the parking that we had finally put into place after 30 years of talking about doing this. And the reason, and it's not just for the city, and it's not just for the residents, the reason we need that parking garage is so people in the community, the locals, and I call it you locals, can come into the city and have those that ability. So they can make adjustments to the parking, and we can have more ADA compliant ones closer to the city that are gonna be free anyways, and not have to adjust that, and we have that availability. So I appreciate everyone showing up. I've been seeing it on Facebook and going back and forth. I've seen them ask time and time again, come to the committee, because you don't have to come here with your headphones up. You can come in and actually talk with people. You can say, hey, what about this? What I sit in here every single meeting on here, and it's not because I have to get off work. I come from Alpine, I come here. If I'm off on the week, or if I'm off, I walk here. I make sure I'm here for the parking, not because I know how to solve this, because I know these people in here have been doing it. And the people up here in this committee have been doing that. Because I know that we just put out an RFQ, or we have a proposal, they accepted it today, or they talked about it, and we're gonna start putting it in a parking garage. It's been time to do that. And so if they couldn't tell you, hey, we're doing this first actual step to getting a parking garage done, which it took us only, well, when they actually decided to start actually do something about it, which is 2018 is when it was discussed, the committee, they started charging for parking, just historically, how fast we've done that and done it without paying any money for it, not paying interest on it. That's what this city's done so far. That's what it's done for the locals. That's what it's done for not the tourists. It's what it's done for the entire community, including Cascade School District. So thank you for coming. I appreciate everyone for coming. I'm glad that you don't do it on Facebook only, but please show up next month at the same parking committee. Because even if you live abroad, show up, because it does affect you. So we need to hear your voices, but not just when you're heckles. You need to, everyone needs to participate when they can at any time that they can. And if not, then ask the questions. All this information is available. It's not easy to find on the website, but all the information is available. And I've heard people talk about it, and I was able to find it quickly. So let's make sure that we're coming in to make sure we can get things done with the committee and with the city. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we have 8 people still online. Does anybody want to speak? Please raise your hand and I can promote you. And they're dropping off like flies. Okay, anybody else in the room who would like to comment?
I'd like to make a second comment, just like with the city of Laguna Beach, like what they do. It's free for residents, but they do pay, like it's free for the metered spots, but you pay annually. So having that revenue is like kind of like a season pass to park here. You know, you can expect that year to year, and as the city grows, that'll only grow. But like it needs to be as simple as you don't ever pay when you park in a metered spot. And like all of us are saying, none of us are coming down when the towns do. Nobody wants to. Well, we'd rather walk or bike. So, yeah.
All right, last call for comments from our awesome public in attendance. All right, hearing none, back to the committee. Now that we've heard a lot of public comments today, if the committee has any follow-up comments or things to discuss, please let me know.
I just have a quick comment. I've mentioned this before to the committee, just how with the changeover and kiosks and stuff like that, that we needed a little bit more community outreach and education. And like, even though we've talked about this, all of the stuff is available, like need a little bit of hand holding. Because it's clear from today too, that people didn't know about the 15-minute parking or the resident permits or like all this stuff. So I think even if we decide to do absolutely nothing, we do need to do some sort of education and outreach to let people know like where all the free parking is, like BJ was saying, and more about the permit options and 15-minute parking and all of that.
We do a lot of that at every single community engagement night when we invite
No.
people in. We have stuff with us and we will tell you where the free parking is.
No, I know you guys do so much work, and
But-
that's not what I'm
but
saying,
back to the
but
point,
it's
just
obvious
like-
that.
Yeah.
No, and we actually do have something going with our communications right now
Right.
that I'm working to push out.
Totally, yeah, no, and I'm just saying that this is kind of like reiterating that.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. Isn't it?
Yeah, our marketing director has also been really good about including that in our weekly Sunday email, information about various different parking opportunities, those sorts of things. And we can keep utilizing that. And I would encourage those in attendance today to make sure you sign up on our city listserv so you get that email on Sundays if you aren't on the list currently, because that's a really great way of getting updates on the city meetings that are coming throughout the whole week. As well as events that the city is promoting, city information with regard to decisions the city council has made at previous meetings, as well as things like this with the parking committee, and parking information, our residential parking program that's been established. We drop a lot of those fun little education components into those email blasts periodically as well to make sure that we're adding an educational component. All right. Momi, anything from you?
I'm getting close on those names.
All right, perfect. I assume you're talking about establishing your residential parking zone.
Zone 5 parking. It's
Love it.
just that a lot of people are home, and I'm still a realtor on the weekends, so
Yep.
that gets goofy, but I'm getting close.
All
I
right.
have the numbers.
Jean?
My only thought on this communication thing is, everything's online. A lot of people aren't really up on all the online stuff. I wonder if we could maybe send out some sort of postcard blast to all the Leavenworth people with just some real concise stuff and ask them to sign up for what you were just talking about. Because maybe people don't even know about that. I don't know about that.
Also, I feel like people get spammed so much in their emails, like it's hard to keep up. So I don't know what the solution is, but I think we need to just like come up with some sort of way to push out this information because it's not working all the way clearly.
Yeah. Agreed.
And I have another question or just clarification about the resident zones and like what Momi's trying to do. You said that was given to the residents rather than would it have been in your control?
The council wanted the residents, when they set the program up, when the committee set the program up, they wanted the residents to have a true voice in putting this together, and communicating with each other in that zone is part of it. So what we ask is that we get 60% signatures, and I have a list of how many people are in the zone, so how many signatures you need. And then you just get signatures. If you have enough signatures and enough support from your community, then we will come out and put the signs up and
Put that program into place.
put that program.
Would you guys have ever thought about just taking over that and not having the residents choose if they could do that or not?
No,
No?
because the council wanted it this way. It's not something I can change like that. And I don't know how many of our residents would want to be forced into that.
Yeah, the council's decision was to keep it as an opt-in option. So we implemented it in our code, and any of the residential neighborhoods within the established zoning areas can choose to opt in. But we didn't want to implement that and force everybody within the city limits to be in a parking zone if they didn't feel that they needed it in their neighborhood. We just created the opportunity for it.
Sounds like it could all be one giant zone for all residents.
Yes.
I have a comment that's separate from all this. I just wanted you guys to be made aware that I'm an avid user of Park Mobile. It's very easy for me to pay for parking because I'm always having to be somewhere downtown. But the last few weeks, it's not worked. It says it's like unable, it's always giving me an error message.
Connectivity probably.
Yeah, which is like really frustrating just because, you know, I think the kiosks are great for tourists, but I think the Park Mobile is actually really conducive to residents. So I can just, my, you know, license plate is already typed in on that. And then also on the 15 minutes, I think there's some confusion, at least like, you know, I'm up with the times on the 15 minutes. But sometimes when I go to use it, because I am running somewhere quick, it actually doesn't provide me that option on Park Mobile. It's trying to make me pay a flat rate. It must be during like that search time or whatever parking lot I'm in. I've noticed that it happens in this parking lot right here next to City Hall, where things are happening at City Hall that are public meetings. And
Have you used it before? Like, are you trying to do it a second time in a different
No.
zone or anything?
No, it's
Okay.
first time of the day. And it doesn't give you the option. So I think that's something to look into because I think adds to some frustration by people, residents parking when they're trying to follow the rules. And there's something that, you know, offered, but it doesn't really work. Thank you.
Thanks.
If you find out the park roll's not working, don't wait for a meeting to tell us.
Yes, call up, because I will test.
Actually, I did tell a parking person yesterday while I was running to something.
So Park Mobile is integrating right now and rewriting things so that they and Flowbird are now together. And part of the glitches that we've seen over the last couple of weeks are a direct result of that, but we're gonna check with our rep tomorrow and test everything. And anytime you have an issue with that, I mean, if you want to give me a call, if you want to call the office, we'd love to hear that, because that way we can get on it. Because no, that's not the customer service I want anybody to have, whether they're visiting or resident. I want them to be able to get in there, get their stuff done and leave, because that's what they want to do. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
And I think that is a problem sometimes with residents, because for visitors, it's like, okay, we gotta deal with it, it's cumbersome, but we're only here for the weekend. But with residents, they're dealing with it, you know, every time they come to town, and then they're like trying to do the thing, it's not working, and they're like.
It's an added frustration.
Yeah.
It's something we're working on, and I don't know if you guys have noticed when we have huge amounts of people in town that you can't get a call out. We have real problems when we have massive amounts. There's some data that starts lagging, and we are working on getting better.
We already switched out the cards from AT&T to Verizon to get better
Yeah,
coverage.
we have, and we do have great coverage, so we did do that, but that doesn't stop the
It does
thousands
slow
of
down.
people coming in with every single app they own open. And so then they're like sucking everything up, and, you know, you just want free 15 minutes. And so, yeah, that is something we're aware of, and I appreciate that, because it's something we're always trying to work on, because it's irritating. Is there anything else from anybody?
Madam Chair, you want to close the meeting?
Oh, you're on mute, Anne.
And you're on mute.
I know. Sorry, my Zoom freaked out for a second. Okay. Sorry about that, guys. All of a sudden it would just like disappeared. Any other comments from the committee on our public participation in comments this evening, based off some of the options that have been brought forward this evening? No? All right. We still got a lot to discuss, a lot to work on. And I really look forward to continuing to work on this. And I want to thank all of the public for joining us tonight and participating. It really helps our committee with some guidance based on what our community desires. And so thank you all for taking time out of your afternoon/evening and coming to participate. Thank you very much. And with that, we will adjourn for this evening. Thank you, everyone, for your time.
Quick announcements, Anne.
Oh,
One,
yes.
For a number of Q's, questions posted to the webinar. I've captured them and I answered a bunch live while I could. Some of them I did not. those will be forwarded to the committee. And if I can identify who asked them, I will provide you with a response. Also, for folks who are, we do meet regularly. It is usually the third Thursday of the month at 4 p.m. This was ordered because we had a federal holiday and we cannot have public meetings on federal holidays. So the next one will be on July 17th. However, the August meeting will be canceled because this is the time that we'll be having our block party at the Osborne. So I hope to see you all at the block party instead of the parking meeting in August.
Perfect. Thank you for that, Toby.
Not relevant public information. I want to be sure that everyone's here.
Yeah, I can read through everything actually, and I can't put it up there because I'm in the wrong. So one question was, is it possible to see data on parking revenue segmented by vehicle registration zip code?
I could check.
Shannon will check. Anonymous attendee commented, I think the 3-hour limit makes sense for local people who are not working a full 8-hour shift. I see that Park Smart permit is limited to only the Freund lot. What other options is the committee exploring to provide parking for local workers? Next, just because there's more inventory doesn't mean we would pay less. Tuesday through Thursday, 1 to 4 hours free for residents is perfect. Kelly Craig did mention, she reiterated her comment, which was about the Cle Elum sign. She reiterated that. Then Karen Francis McWhite said, can we work toward a goal of residential parking permits similar to the annual 2 vehicles per household like Chelan has? I know nothing about Chelan program. Even if we can't do it now, it'd be great to be clear about the goal we're working towards. Thank you.
And Selby, did you want to walk through the other questions in the other?
Good point. So the questions we got were, are you muted? Yes. Can you say something so my audio is working? We're on. Where can I find information on residential parking permits on the city's, on the parking page of the city's website? Can this be passed on to the committee, which I did email them tomorrow, emailed the committee already, and it looks like it was parklink.com onboarding Foley Beach permanent resident program. So we'll look into that.
We have already.
Okay. And someone said, not everybody's on Facebook. Listing these meetings on the public calendar and local newspaper would be helpful. And the response was, all parking meetings are on the city's meeting calendar and regular committee meeting times run regularly in the Echo. And I provided a link to our calendar.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Anything else from city staff? All right. Thank you, everyone. We are adjourned for this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, I thank you guys for